Can't do anything. You want to go live? Just go live. Let's see.
I can't.
All right, so
The other one is live.
Which one is live? This one?
Yeah, Zoom is live.
Whatsoever, I don't have a live program. And first Friday night,
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to FNL Live. We are live. We are in person. This is the first time we've been back since the beginning of the week. So happy to see that we're playing in person and that we're online as well. We thank you for feeling with us. And as we go into our praise worship, we are just going to sing and start off with what it is also. It's been a week. People that it's Sabbath, that we can rest. We don't have to worry about work, we don't have to worry about nothing, but just showing up to church and just giving God all the praise and glory that we serve. So as we sing the song, and you know, we've been through a long week, and who just wants to praise? Who just wants to praise God for getting us through this week? I mean, teacher. It's been a week. The students have been off the chain first. So we just want to praise him and give him glory and honor as we sing our last song, praise and worship. He's coming, and it's happy. Move around again. Your offices, maybe your homes, your rooms, wherever you're at.
gospel word, especially through the spoken word, and to hear wonderful things being presented and being participated by the entire wonderful Pastor Chamber, who just walked us through from song service all the way into the divine service, where we have presentation of the word, preaching of the gospel. I would not want to believe that that's the thing of church. Afterwards, will you walk us through what are the activities
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Happy Sabbath. Happy Friday. Just want to send warm wishes to everyone's way. Thank you so much for sticking it out with us, for staying online, and just for being here with us on our Friday Night Live. We really do appreciate it. This is our first hybrid program for year 2022. So thank you so much. We hope that you enjoy what we have in store for you, and we are hoping that you will get a blessing out of it. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, so tonight we have a special topic. Our topic is mental health.
and kind of like uncovering, like debunking the stereotypes and all the things that go on. I know everybody knows when we're into now, year 2 of COVID, world pandemic. To say that we've all been stressed and we've all had stuff is an understatement, right? On top of that, between going back to school, virtual, in person, there's a lot of things going on. So tonight we have a few facilitators. What we're going to do is we're going to start out with our Kahoot. We're famous for the Kahoots. So Ayana is going to set up the Kahoot, and she's going to
Hi, friend. How are
post
you?
up the code. So for those of you at home, if you could just go online, go on your phones or your computers,
Send me
go to
something, same number. I'm listening. Go
kahoot.com.
ahead. I just
That's
deleted it. I didn't
KAHOOTIT.com. And Ayana is going to actually put up our code with the code B. And then
I'm very sorry.
we'll see who's the most knowledgeable.
The person said, I'm very sorry, I entered the wrong number. I have found Jenny, and surprisingly, you are the only one number short. I hope I'm not disturbing Jenny. I said, no problem. I'm not sure. The person said, thank you. No problem. I'm not sure. Very
Delete that.
So, where are you from? So I said,
Delete it. Ayana, is it letting you share now? We made you the
Hi,
co-host.
everyone. I can try
Ayana,
again.
is it letting you share now?
It says it's failed. It's not letting me.
Well, give me 1 second. We didn't prepare for this. So. Share. Was it Giannis sharing or what?
No, it's not letting me share, so I'm not sure who's sharing that.
No.
What is this about creating a sentence?
We're trying to set it up. That's her screen sharing.
Oh, yeah, it's doing the same thing on that one.
Got it.
Thank you. All right. All right, can everybody see that link?
Ayana, we see it.
Great.
Ayana, we see it.
Great. Everything is very delayed on my end. So like what I said didn't come back to me for like another 30 seconds. All right, so on my end, I only see 5 people who've joined the game. Let's get some more folks creating a username or a nickname and joining with that pin up top. All right, I see 6 now. Anyone else? Got to have some more people. All these people on the call and I'm sure in the building. All right, I see someone says they're coming. Thank you for joining. All right, there we go. We got another one. Thank you, thank you. I'll give it maybe another 30 seconds. There's a QR code at the top that you can scan to. That should bring it up really quickly.
Sorry.
All right.
Okay.
I see people joining still. All right, if you want to go ahead and get started, whoever's screen that is. Oh, I still see some more people, okay.
Do I miss her here?
Yeah.
All right. The first question is, which of the following is a leading cause of illness and disability in adolescence? We got depression, anxiety, and behavioral disorders, or just depression and anxiety? We got 4 answers. We're going to talk about some mental health stuff tonight. Let's get your thoughts. All right. 3 people. Let's see who's at the top. Okay. Court, I see you. Lexi, Ethan. Question number 2 right here. Suicide is the blank leading cause of death among 15 through 19-year-olds. Is it the 2nd, 5th, 7th, or 4th leading cause of death for teenagers? All right, some answers are coming in. 2 seconds. 1. Oh, how did you guys know it's the second? Nobody's Googling over there, are you? I can't hear anybody, so somebody's saying something, I wouldn't know. You'd have to put it in the chat. Court is still number 1. Okay, don't be Googling stuff over there. Which of the following are often misdiagnosed for students in the African-American school community? Is it autism, ADHD, bipolar disorder, or trauma disorders? 6 more seconds. Few more people need to answer. 2, 1, and time's up. It is ADHD that is often very misdiagnosed, and there's an overprevalence, and we can talk about maybe some of that a little bit later. On to the next one. All right. Who's in second? Lexi, and then we have Mark. All right. Question number 4. Which of the following are examples of a coping skill? Reading, praying, exercise, all of the above. All right. Good job, y'all. All of those are coping skills, and there are so many more, which we can also talk about tonight. Next question, please, por favor. Thank you. Somebody's got to come for court. We have some people rising, though. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Question number 5. This one's double the points. All right, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your double points later on if somebody can finish the rest of that verse. Which book of the Bible does that scripture come from? Is it Psalms, Hebrews, Philippians, or Proverbs? All right. Most of you guys got that right there. The rest of that is present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And that's Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 7. All right. Somebody knew their Bible verses there. All right. Among teenagers, non-Hispanic Black males have the highest death rate. Is that true or false? Y'all are quick with this one. Few more answers. 5 seconds. Oh, okay. Most of you guys are right there. Black males do have the highest death rate, and that's a collection of many different things. So not just suicide, but murders and accidents and health problems and that sort of thing. We can go ahead to the next question. All right. Mark is coming for first. You can't get addicted to marijuana. Is that true or false? You can't get addicted to marijuana. Drugs and alcohol, definitely. All right, there you go. That's false. Correct. You can get addicted. A lot of people don't know that one, but it's really important, especially to make sure the younger ones know that. Don't do drugs, guys. Next question, please. All right, we're almost done. A few more left. A support system is, which of the following? Does it consist of people who hold you accountable? Consist of people who you can trust to talk about personal matters? Consist of people who can provide emotional or practical support, or people who can do all of the above? 3 seconds. 2, that was a long one. 1 second. Most answers are in, and the answer is, there we go, all of the above. You should be looking for people who support you in all those different areas. All right, Court. I don't think number 1 is for you tonight. You got some competition here. All right, next question. 9 out of 12, 3 left. Trauma can occur at any stage in someone's life, including infancy. Is that true or false? 11 answers in 11 seconds. I think we're waiting for one more. 12. There we go. Good job, y'all. So even as early as being a baby, being exposed to trauma can impact your brain and affect you in your life moving forward. Mark, there you go. First place, true or false? People who are suicidal often give warning signs. Do they give warning signs? Is that true or false? One more answer. Okay, true. That is true. People who are suicidal often give warning thoughts, and we'll talk about maybe those a little bit later. Jay has a streak with 5 correct answers in a row. Okay. 11 out of 12, 2 left, guys. Late in the midnight hour, God's going to turn it around. It's going to work in your favor. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Which song is that? Anybody know? Blurt it out if you're in the sanctuary or in the chat box, and then you can answer. Is that true or false? I think we all know the answer to that one. All right, there we go. That's one of my favorite songs. All right, Mark, nice work. And Jay, you got 6 answers in a row. This is the last one, y'all. I know at least 3 things I can do to help myself when I'm struggling emotionally. So yes is going to be true. No is false. And then we can also talk about this. Maybe some of y'all are comfortable enough to share those 3 things that you do to help yourself when you're struggling emotionally. Oh, that's really good. All right, that's it. Thank y'all for participating. Let's see who the winners for tonight are. JB, okay, 3rd place, round of applause. Who came for 2nd? Court. Oh, all right, nice job, y'all. And number 1, Mark. Hey, congratulations. And we had some runner-ups too. Can't forget about those. Thank you everybody for participating. And we hope you find tonight interesting. That's a warm up to some of the deep stuff we'll be digging into tonight.
Okay. Okay. Okay, there we go. Sorry. All right, so as you can see on the screen, we have our panelists. We have our panelists for the evening. So our first that I'd like to introduce is Nora Rogers. She is a counselor extraordinaire. She has been, as you guys know, she's been here with FNL. We consider her a member of the family. She's been here and she's always helping the kids out, our young adults. And she's here tonight to answer questions also and to, impart on us some wisdom. We also have Tasha. Tasha is a recent grad from NYU, and we are so excited to have her. I met Tasha through my daughter, through Courtney, and we were so excited when Tasha said yes. Tasha, if you could just wait for us, please. Great. And we also have Ayana. Ayana is one of our new family members, and Ayana is also a counselor at John Bartram High School. So she gave us our warm-up into this evening's program. So what we basically want to do is we're going to have our ladies just begin. I don't know who wants to go first with talking, but we're just going to open up the discussion, and I'm going to hand it over to Nori, Tasha, and Ayana.
Good evening, everyone. It is so nice to see you guys. It's been a long, long time.
Hi, everyone. You guys heard me a little while ago. My name's Ayana Short. I am, well, Miss Nikki just introduced me as the mental health therapist counselor at Bartram High School. It's nice to be here. I've spoken a few times before and I've been adopted into the family, and I'm happy to be here tonight.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tasha. Once again, it is a pleasure to be a part of FNL. I am honored that Courtney asked me to be a part of this, and I'm excited for what our discussion is going to bring tonight.
Okay, so ladies, what we'd like to know is, what are some of the things that you're finding for our young adults and young people as we open up the discussion about mental health? What are some of the things that you are finding prevalent in this age group? And we want to just talk about that, as well as talking, I know Ayana brought up on the Kahoot, just the rates of suicide that have gone up. A lot of misdiagnosis. And a lot of times what I hear is that, oh, we're Black, so what stays in the house, what's in the house stays in the house, and you should handle your own business. You know, you should be strong enough to do it. And you really don't need to talk to anybody and stuff. So if we could just talk a little about that, what would you say to somebody who's like, you know what, I think we should handle our own business. Why do we even need to go to somebody to talk?
Could you repeat the question? Because I heard bits and pieces of it.
We can't hear you at all.
Okay, we're gonna do
Echo.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Yay, there we go. All right,
There we go.
talking without the mic.
Yes.
What would you say to somebody who's saying you need to handle your own stuff? We don't need to go to anybody to talk about it. We should be handling it in-house.
I think that's really an old-fashioned answer now. Ooh. I think that's an old-fashioned answer now. I think mental health services are prevalent in everything. The views on mental health should be like this. People who have diabetes, they take their medicine, they go to the doctor. Same thing should apply when it comes to mental health. We have seen over, prior to the pandemic and through the pandemic, we have seen the results of people not taking care of their mental health. We have been seeing, I know I've been seeing a rise in suicide among young people. I think now that we're starting to come out of the pandemic, I think we're going to start seeing other factors. You know, life as we know it or knew it will never be the same.
All right, so I'll go ahead and speak. I am actually a living testimony of that phrase, pretty much handling it yourself, because I come from a household where what happens in the house stays in the house. And so as a result, it was very difficult for me to seek out help. And when I did seek out help, I felt like I wasn't heard, which is kind of what drew me to the mental health field in the first place. And I think it's very, it's, how do I want to put it? It's very difficult to tell somebody to try to figure it out or work it out for themselves when, number one, they have no guidance or no place to turn, and number two, they're living in their trauma almost every single day. And so as a result of that, I don't know, I find it still difficult to kind of navigate that question because I feel like I'm still figuring it out myself. But it narrows down to really addressing what those traumas are and just trying to see. I've reached a place where I just try to see what works for myself, because when I tried to go down the other route, it wasn't very helpful for me. So I'm still on the fence with navigating that question.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good and also hard question to answer. What I found a lot when I'm working with, so I've worked with like kids all the way from kindergarten up through like people with walkers and need wheelchairs to get around, and plenty of gray hairs and close to the end. But so right now I'm working with teenagers, and what I hear a lot with that group would be when you use a word like depressed or anxious or trauma, that people are more likely to shut that down and be like, oh, I don't have that, or like that doesn't apply to me. And so I sometimes stay away from using those words at first when I'm getting to like know somebody or like starting that conversation. And if you just talk like in general about sadness or down days or feeling really stressed to a point where it's kind of interfering with your sleep, or so breaking it down more into like the symptoms that we're seeing, people more likely to that's my train of thought. More likely to say, oh, okay, so maybe that would be a safe space to like talk about that. Or and I always bring it back to confidentiality too, and that like if what we're saying, it's not going to go anywhere else in this room unless you're going to hurt yourself, somebody else, or somebody is hurting you. And then also, I guess, like breaking that down, like where is that coming from, like the patterns and the generations, and also like just saying it's helpful to have a neutral person to hear the situation. And I guess it's just like a lot of destigmatizing, and the way you go about it, building a good rapport and a relationship with the person is important. Those are some of my thoughts about that one.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so you know what? I love the different perspectives that each of you came up with, presented, because Tasha, from your perspective, it really seems as if this is definitely something that was definitely personal, growing up in that household. And Ayana, you're seeing it from the perspective of the young people that you're dealing with. And Nori, just the overall perspective that you're coming from. As we enter into, let's say, this 2022, what do you think are some of the most important tools that we should take with us to even begin to address our mental health issues, address some of the common things? I know that a lot of people may have experienced anxiety for the first time, some depression, the isolation, the fact that life has changed so drastically. There may be a lot of situations, mental health issues that have stemmed from that. So what advice or tips would you like to give us?
One of the biggest things that I am pushing with anybody that I work with, I'm also a grief counselor. So I deal with a large spectrum of people who are grieving in addition to dealing with the pandemic. Is I tell people, look at your life. Anything that is unnecessary, that is causing you stress, grief, drama, anxiety, get it out of your life. The bottom line is I can love you from a distance. And if it's someone that I don't necessarily need to have in my life, and just their presence is causing me just to be so uncomfortable, just having so many issues, walk away. And what we're finding is, it was interesting. I was speaking to someone and they were talking about downtown Philadelphia. They were saying that they were down there and it's almost like a ghost town right now because so many people are working at home. I'm 2.5 years in working at home, and I have found that my stress level has been greatly reduced. However, the world is opening back up again. What does that look like? Can I safely go out without my mask? Are they really telling me the truth about, where we are with the pandemic, or is this a money issue? There's a lot of factors. A lot of people had a lot of anxiety about being in the house. So everyone has to know where they are and what is causing them the anxiety, the depression. We have to be honest with ourselves. I think that is the most important thing. Sometimes if you don't want to do something, you have to be honest and say, this is not for me. I don't want to do this. And be willing to make that change, but also be willing to take the consequence of making that change.
I think what you just said about like knowing where you are and what is causing this, like what's the source of the sadness or depression that's going on right now, the amount of stress that I'm taking in. Is it the people around me? Is it my work environment? Is it what's going on and what we're hearing in the news with the pandemic, or just other things that we're absorbing and taking in? I think self-reflection is a really important part of like even figuring out where to go next, and just taking a look at like your current state and how that's impacting others around you. Are your family and friends noticing a difference, like that sort of thing? Because then you can sit there and go, maybe I do need to talk to someone. Or even if you're not ready to see a therapist or your school counselor, or like maybe just like opening up and looking back, that goes to that question about like support systems. That's really big. And like having people in your life that have most or all of those qualities that we discussed, and take a look at the things that you're doing outside of school or work. So are you involved at church? Are you volunteering? So like just thinking about like different ways that you can occupy your time, and like where your energy is going and what energy you're also getting back from those places. So I think that's a good place to start.
I totally agree with everything that has been presented thus far. One thing that I personally was looking into, and during the height of the pandemic, I had the privilege of working with younger children that were in foster care, that had adverse childhood experiences. And one thing that we focused on, and one theme rather that we focused on, was resiliency, right? So when you think of the word resilience, you think of the ability to recover from a difficulty or something that's tough, or rather you could even think of like an object or a substance basically bouncing back to its original shape. So think of it from a person bouncing back from something that they've gone through to their regular normal schedule. And when you look at resiliency in a person, you're looking at the emotional well-being, you're looking at their relationships, their physical health, what drives them, so on and so forth. And these different pillars that keep that person going. And one thing that I encourage the young children that I was working with is to look at how far they've come in their journey and how do we go about that. I mean, at their age, what does that really look like? Okay, so we would kind of break it down. Hey, you're getting up and you're still going to school. You're still logging on your Zoom classes, even though you're not able to see your friends in person and play. You're coming up with creative ways to do things. You might not be able to go to Legoland because it's closed down in the midst of a pandemic, but you're doing some activities at home that's still fostering some type of skills and growth within you. And so the fact that you're still able to show up and show out despite everything that has gone on just shows and defines a different type of strength in you. And so that was one way that I was able to try to keep them encouraged during all these changes that they weren't really understanding. And so that was something that I even had to use within myself. This is a whole different world. It's something new is going on. My life is changing right before my eyes. What do I do? Or what can I do? Am I capable to handle this? Am I capable to go through this? You know, what within myself makes it worth pressing on?
You guys bring up so many great points. For those who are listening, we're also asking, if you have any questions, you can just post it in the chat, we'll read it, and have them, our panelists, address. I failed to have each one of you just kind of give you a background. Just, you know, what made you choose mental health and, you know, your background and what you're doing now. So if you could do that for me, please. Thanks.
It's interesting what Tasha said at the first question. I started out as an engineer, and it was the trauma, the generational trauma that went on in my family. We all came from a little town in Beckley, West Virginia. We were hillbillies and coal miners. And all of us were just born into dysfunction. And it had just gotten to the point where it was consuming all of my siblings, all of my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, alcoholism, you know, just everything that you can even imagine went on in the family. And it was me living in a household with someone that we didn't know what today was going to bring with their behavior that introduced me into mental health. So my background is I started out at Lincoln University, master's in human service. Then I went on to Capella for my PhD in educational psychology. I've been a behavior specialist. I've been a mobile therapist. Currently, I'm doing a lot of work with grief and loss. And grief and loss is not always death. It's foreclosure. It's the loss of hair. It's loss of health, loss of limbs. Such a large spectrum. I'm also starting to do a lot of work with suicide. I'm in the process of being a trainer to train others to recognize the signs of suicide, because we're losing so many of our young men to suicide. At my church alone, I think in the last, I thought it was 6 months, it would actually be 4 months. We've had 5 completion of suicide and 1 attempt. So I'm doing a lot of work with suicide and with the families after a suicide has been completed.
That is really important work that you're doing. Grief and loss covers so many different things, and your work is so valuable. What got me into the field is that I went to undergrad at St. John's University in Queens, New York. I was an education major for like the first 2.5 years. And after like that much time in courses and exams and volunteering and summer school jobs and all that stuff. I was like, well, being a teacher is not for me. But I knew that I still wanted to be in the schools. And so I got out of St. John's really quickly. I was like, all right, pick any major, sociology. I graduated within those 4 years, but then I was like, uh-oh, what do I do with a sociology degree? And so after that, I decided to take some time and really think about where I wanted to go next and like how exactly I could work with youth in our communities. And I wanted to be in predominantly African-American and Black communities. And I got a job working in a residential facility where teenagers with behavioral problems and maybe were not fitting so well into foster care homes, and like group homes weren't an option. So I got a lot of work in the mental health field there. And then I said, okay, I'm gonna go get my master's degree in social work. And then after I graduated, I continued on with the they call it direct practice route. And so I've practiced individual, group, and family therapy, variety of different ages and different settings since then. And I talked a little bit about earlier being the school mental health therapist. So that's kind of my background and what got me into it. And I love what I do. It's very stressful, but I think the work is valuable. And people are like, why don't we have more of you guys in the schools? And it's so true. And I think the more we destigmatize it, our youth are talking more openly about it, and they do appreciate those safe spaces to talk. So I encourage anybody who wants to give back in that way to go on and study in this field. We'll never go out of we'll never go out of style. We need so many more of us. And the work that we're doing in our community matters, and it helps to see people that look like us sitting across the table or the couch to talk about things that are going on.
Thank you guys so much for sharing. How did I get into mental health route? I come from a background of generational trauma, adverse childhood experiences that trickled into adulthood. And I was someone who originally wanted to go into law enforcement. I had dreams of being a cop, and then I had dreams of going to the FBI, and I had dreams of doing this and dreams of doing that. And I had a high school teacher who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself and said, hey, well, why don't you go the psychology route? And I said, what's psychology? I don't even know. And actually growing up in an Adventist home, psychology was made out to be that they were trying to do hypnosis on you and get into your head and stuff. That was the idea of what it was. And so automatically I was like, I don't think my mom would approve if I get into psychology. So whatever. And he was like, no, it's not like that. Get into it. So I ended up finding my way at Washington Adventist University, where I took on undergrad in counseling psych with a minor in forensic psychology. And I fell in love with forensic psychology. And so my original plan was I was going to go to whatever school the Lord would have led me to, and I was going to do forensic psychology, and I was going to get my PhD, and I was going to be in the FBI, and I was going to be at Quantico, and I was going to just all these big dreams of going that route. And God had to humble me real quick. And once again, trauma, went through some more stuff that no one at my age should really be navigating. And so I decided, okay, let me go to a therapist. First therapist I went to, I wasn't even 2 seconds into explaining why I was there, and we were taking a walk to the hospital. Very confused as to why we were going there. All I know is I fought my way to get out. After that, I said, therapy's not for me. I don't want to do it. Tried it again. The therapist, I don't know, maybe if it was overwhelming for her, but it didn't continue. And so I was on a path where I said, ill, don't care about therapy, top 5, would not recommend, nobody do it, until something said to me, well, if you've had those bad experiences, that doesn't mean that that's how it is for everybody. So if you can't get into it, why not become a part of it? I guess, however that phrase goes. Whatever the case may be, I found myself at New York University studying mental health and wellness, where I took trauma classes, learned more about adverse childhood experiences, wrote biographies about myself, and started to learn more about what this all entails, but also learn more about the conventional versus the unconventional ways of healing, the spiritual, the meditation, the creative arts therapy, the dance therapy, music therapy, all these different things that was so different from your typical face-to-face talk therapy. And then I went into working with children in foster care that had adverse childhood experiences and trauma. And then somehow I found myself working in a juvenile facility with youth that were serving sentences, also had trauma as well. And I became the quote unquote counselor on the floor for them as I continue to build my practice. And then right now I'm also working with young men on the spectrum that have dual diagnosis. So I'm also building my skills there. And hopefully one day I pray to finally jumpstart this dream that I had for a couple of months now, to open my own practice and kind of target these same populations that I have been working with thus far. So that's pretty much how I came into this field.
Ladies, that was absolutely beautiful. Thank you. And you know what? It really is important, especially in the Black community, to be able to look across and see someone that looks like you. You know, that is kind of, I know Black America is not all the same, but to understand some of the Black American experience, you know, you need to be Black American. So that's just right there. You know, we applaud all three of you for doing this work. We're so appreciative of it. As we said before, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat and we'll definitely ask. One of the things, how would you say, what are some of the signs that we should look out for if we maybe need to talk to someone? Are there some signs that we should look out for, or are there some red flags?
For me, the biggest change is a change in behavior, change in routine. Some people will actually tell you, I'm finding with younger people, because at my job right now, General Services, I'm dealing a lot with high school students as a mobile therapist. And a lot of them are students are understanding my mental health is not where it should be. They will say it. I think, you know, people look at mental health sometimes as, oh, they're just saying it, it's a cop out. But when someone tells you, I'm not in a good place right now, we have to listen. We have to hear. We have to listen. We have to ask the probing questions. Can't be judgmental. We have to have compassion. We have to be that catalyst that people feel comfortable enough to say, I'm in trouble, I'm hurting. There was a term that back in the day they used to use, suffering in silence. We should never, ever have anyone suffer in silence. If a person says that they're suicidal or they're thinking about hurting themselves, we have to go with the fact that that's what they're going to do. Period.
Signs that you need to get help, like if you're looking within yourself, like I think I agree with everything that was just said. What is it about your normal routine or just like normally who you are. Like I'm normally like down the hall, but if somebody sees me consistently day after day and I'm coming in like this, and like just sometimes your body language will even say it, or if I'm not as social with other people, as I'm just giving examples, and your friends are like, yo, why don't you come out anymore? Or you don't hit me up, and you start to like behaviors as simple as like isolating could be one. Do you find yourself snapping on people when it could just be like the smallest thing, and then you lose your temper, you take everything out from a hard day on and put it on to somebody who's completely innocent and had nothing to do with what you're going through? So those are some of the telling signs that like, hey, maybe you could benefit from talking to somebody, or just even acknowledging like what's going on and practicing like some coping skills, and just like taking a moment to reset. And I guess if we're going into like talking about like suicide, like so many people are like, oh, they're just saying that, and you can't risk that. And we have to believe it. And people, when they say that, 99% of the time, they mean that they're actually considering it, or that that's crossed their mind if more than once. And so if somebody is talking about it, they say like a good thing to know is that like if they bring it up, don't be afraid to discuss it. Like once that topic is up there, talk about it. And if you don't know what to say, then there are so many different resources maybe we can give out at the end, with plenty of people who do know what to say, and they're free. And just like being there for somebody on the other end is really helpful too.
Absolutely agree with everything that was just said, especially changes in behavior and the isolation part. One thing that I have experienced and seen in a lot of people that I've encountered is changes in eating habits. And granted, that could be applied to anything, but I can speak for me when I say there would be times when I was high and I would just eat a lot, do a lot of binge eating, and then times when I was low and then I wasn't eating at all. And at first, for someone of my stature, it wasn't really a big deal. But then after a while, I had to realize, okay, something's a little bit off. This is not like me. Maybe this time I should get this checked out, and kind of just take it from there. So I think piggybacking on what was previously said, it's really important to pay attention to who you are as a person, pay attention to what your routine looks like on a day-to-day basis, and then kind of gauge it from there, to see where things have changed in your routine, and just kind of look at that pattern, that duration, that frequency.
You know what? I totally agree with what everyone was saying. I know sometimes people are nervous because they're like, oh, well, if I bring up suicide, oh my goodness, then maybe I'm, bringing it up, and then it's going to put it out there, and it becomes now something that, someone starts contemplating if I bring it up. So what are your thoughts about that?
There is a lot of stigma around suicide. And one of the biggest places besides family that there is stigma is in our places of worship. Even the whole concept of mental health, not too long ago, people could pray the devil out of you when you had a mental health crisis. You had, schizophrenia, bipolar, whatever it was, because you were a sinner. So it's just, for me, I'm starting to see a trend in churches actually addressing mental health. I attend a pretty large church here in the Philadelphia area, and we have a huge counseling ministry that we deal with all aspects of it. We deal with it from You have some counselors that are strictly Christian counselors. So what does that mean? That means any issue you have, they're going to the Bible, and that's where they're going to find their solution. I am a counselor who is a Christian that loves the Lord, and I'm going to recognize and treat you based on that. I need to, yes, we will talk about the Lord. We can go to the Bible, but I need to focus my basis on my education, on my clinical experience, and it was interesting because years ago, I had someone say something to me that I've carried with me all of my life. And that is, many times when people are in the middle of a mental health crisis, they think that they hear God speaking to them. And sometimes those voices that they actually are hearing, because think about it, we pray to someone that we don't even see. We can't touch them. Nobody on this call has ever seen them, but we talk, we have conversation with them. Now, if we're walking down the street and we see someone on the corner talking to someone, what is the first thing that we say? We say they're crazy. But in our prayer life, isn't that what we also do? We have a conversation with someone that we can't see. So for me, the biggest stigma a lot of times besides the family is my place of worship. School had to acknowledge mental health because we had too many kids, as Nicole could tell you, work because we work together, of kids coming in there tearing up a classroom. They had no choice but to acknowledge the fact that something is going on with these children and their mental health. But in a place of worship, we can explain it away. And that's why a lot of people are afraid. What will people say about me because I'm going to a psychiatrist, because I'm taking my medication? So we have to be careful with the stigma of mental health.
When you were asking the question, it cut out a little bit on my end. So do you mind repeating that, please?
Sure. A lot of times people are afraid to even bring up suicide or even bring up mental issues just because it's an uncomfortable conversation, or you're afraid that you are suggesting something. So just like, how would parents, friends even approach that? And I also saw we had a question about
in the chat,
just in our church schools, Seventh-day Adventist schools, just being able to provide support there. Because I know a lot of our schools are Seventh-day Adventist schools, especially the ones that are high schools. A lot of them are boarding academies. So to even be able to have that topic, be able to bring up the subject and speak about it, instead of it being hush-hush, but actually open and a comfortable and safe place for our young people to even, feel as if they can come in and talk about it without being judged.
Tasha, I'm going to switch up the order a little bit here while I think about that. Would you like to go next?
Yeah, that's fine. I guess I can answer this as a product of Christian education and coming from Adventist high schools and universities. It truly is something that needs to be more welcomed as a conversation and taken more serious. And if I, as a youth, am coming to you and saying, Mom, Dad, pastor, elder, sister, brother, this is how I'm feeling, the first thing that you probably shouldn't say to me is take it to the Lord in prayer, because I'm pretty much aware of that. I know I can take it to the Lord in prayer. And maybe I've tried to take it to the Lord in prayer and didn't exactly hear the Lord's answer back. So this is why I'm saying, hey, I need some more support. So I think we definitely need to be open to, number one, fostering these conversations, but also moving past this ideology that prayer heals everything. And I know that's going to be controversial to say, and I'm quite okay with it, but there has to be a little bit. It's like planting potatoes and saying God's going to make them grow, but you still have to make sure the soil is whatever it is, and you know, the potatoes are in a position for the water to come down, right? So I think it's kind of along those same lines. And once again, I know it's a bit controversial, but we have to get past that ideology and really just be open to providing more of these resources, because we also have a lot of young people that are willing to go into this field and willing to study these topics, and you can combine that spiritual aspect along with the other pertinent resources to help a person heal, help a person develop coping skills. You know, there's so much more out there than ever before that these things can happen. We just have to get out of this mindset. I think that's where it starts.
I agree with all of that. I grew up in a Baptist household, and same stuff. Not necessarily with my parents, well, my dad, yes, and my mom was always like, you got to let her be more open with her feelings, and same thing with my brother. But it's like that traditional belief that like, pray about it, or like, you're not going to church enough, or like, maybe you should go to a Bible school, Bible study camp instead of your cheerleading camp. So so just trying to be more open if you're a parent on the line, and take that moment as an opportunity of when somebody, whether it's a niece or nephew or a little one, is opening up about the feelings, just even if you don't know what to say necessarily, like let them talk, and just like encouraging a more open conversation. And there's some, what is it? There's a meme that talks about like when like you want to share your feelings and like it just gets shut down, and like we don't want to foster that community of like, I tried to open up and now like boom, like whatever you said makes me just want to like bury myself deeper and hide under a rock, and then we're only making the problem worse. And even if like, I'm just trying to think of another thing, if you don't know what to say in the household, maybe connecting them with somebody else outside of there, that even if you're not that open to it, and just thinking, let's give it a try even. And just change isn't easy, but it's worth it when it comes to saving lives and breaking generational patterns of trauma, and it just betters everybody's life altogether.
I'm looking at the question, and one of our teachers that's online asked about, she's had some students that really need to talk, and the parents are just like, oh, they're too young, or they're not as bad as other people. So she's asking for suggestions in regards to encouraging just students and parents to get the help. I know I like to say a lot of times that therapy doesn't mean that you're crazy. It just means that a lot of times you just need to have a place to vent that's safe, to be able to sit down with someone and just process your thoughts. And it's unbiased. And that's what I usually like to tell the people that I work with. But what would you suggest? Because I think a lot of people think, well, if I'm going to a therapist, that automatically makes me crazy. But yet we go to doctors for a broken leg. You know, we don't mind going to get healed for any bodily ailment. But what if the moment your mind just needs a little bit of healing? We're all, you know, stressed. So what would you suggest for teachers and people out there?
I think the one thing that we must keep in mind, especially when it comes to children, the parents have to be support. We cannot do anything. At the end of the day, what you don't want to do is lose your job and everything else because you went against a parent. Now, what are some of the things that you can do if you have parents that do not want their children to engage? I would encourage journaling. I would encourage forms of art, expression, anything. What we want is we have to think of the child or the children as like a pressure cooker. When that top is on, that pressure is building and building and building and can explode. But if the parents are not willing to engage in any type of therapy or mental health, the tools are, how do we get that child to release some of those thoughts? As I said, journaling, dancing, art, anything that you can do within the realms where the person can express their self. And a lot of, I've taken a couple of art therapy and music classes. If you're looking at the drawing, if you're looking at the music, you can kind of see themes. You can also see cries for help in that, and back years ago, kids used to express themselves in writing raps. They would walk around with notebooks and just write their raps about, because if you know anything about rap for the most part was what is going on in my life. If you take out the profanity and just get to the meat of it, it was, this is how I'm feeling right now. I don't want to see the police bust another person's head, kill another person of color. That's where you would find what was going on. So that is a tool. Mental health in a school also starts at the top. If your principal, or I'm not sure in the Seventh-day Adventist what the head person is called, but they have to be willing to buy in to putting a program into the school. So that may be also a consideration, is to start having conversation, teachers having conversation with your principals, just to see where their head is. If their head is not in the same space, then you're going to have a fight on your hand.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I asked about the age because in Pennsylvania, if you're not familiar with it, there is a law where if you're 14 years and up, you can seek therapy and mental health treatment, and your parent or guardian, you can sign consent for yourself to get those services. Now, if it goes through your insurance, like you're under your parents' insurance, like they're gonna find out. But if you're in a middle school, if 13 and under, then we have this problem of, and the reason why I said if you're 14 and up, then it could be something as simple as, even if the parents weren't okay with that happening inside of the school, you could maybe give them a referral. And that's another thing too. Some families might be open to it, but they don't want the school knowing the business. And so the parent might be like, yeah, but I don't want it to happen here. So that could be something worth exploring too. But for the younger ones, I think I worked in elementary school before too. We did some workshops with just general education about like some of the behaviors that they're seeing. They might not relate it back to, maybe they could benefit from working with the school social worker or the school counselor. But when you help connect all the dots, they're like, oh, well, maybe I would be more receptive to that. If it has to do with like, there's like a lot of crying in younger kids and they cry too much, or they're always sad, or they get over it and that sort of thing. Just like general conversation about like crying is like how people express their feelings and like they come out that way. So I think it starts with just like the basic conversations. And sometimes if we get too far ahead, it's like this big idea that people aren't ready for yet. And so it's like small baby steps to get there. Reading the rest of it, children are too young for counseling. They don't need it because they're not as bad as other people. Yeah, I think somebody already spoke about that. Books were really good when I was in an elementary school. There are tons of different books that we used to make copies of. You're not supposed to do that because copyright reasons, but give it to the parents to take home and read with the kids. And through the book that they're teaching the kid about expressing feelings and behaviors and stuff, the parent is also reading about it at the same time. So, I mean, there are like some sneaky ways, I guess, you can insert the introduction of mental health and behavioral health services. And even if it's not like formal, just like having a more emotional side where it's okay to talk about problems.
I know a lot of times play is a good outlet too. To just, especially for the little ones, to introduce play, because a lot of times they begin to mirror what's going on in, internally and how they're viewing things. So play becomes another outlet. So that also opens a door. Are there any other questions? Okay. So I know we started late and our program is kind of going towards the 9 o'clock hour now. So we're going to begin to wrap it up. So if you have any questions, now's your time. Ladies, what do you want to kind of like equip everyone with as they go forward from here?
My mantra is, it is okay not to be okay.
You just stole what I was gonna say.
It is,
no fair.
It is, listen, it is okay because listen, there are days where us mental health people, we are not okay. Okay? If you're seeking therapy, the very first question that's going to decide for you whether or not you're going to keep that therapist or you're going to talk to that person, the number one question you have to ask them is, do you see a therapist? If they tell you no, you are to leave and never look back. As a mental health provider, we carry a lot of stuff. We have to talk to each other. So if we have to talk to each other and we're okay with it, it's okay for you guys to talk to someone else. But listen, if you wake up in the morning and you are not feeling it, it's okay to let those close to you say, listen, I'm not. Okay, so if you're my Facebook friend and you see me put on Facebook, I'm about to flip this table, my crew will reach out immediately to me. That's everybody has their own line. A lot of people be laughing, joke, oh, you just calm down, whatever. But my good friends know that, okay, we need to talk her off of the ledge. And it's okay because not every day is going to be sunshine and flowers. Some days you're going to be in the valley. And the issue is coming out of the valley. Some of the people that we see walking around happy and smiling, those are a lot of people that are going through the most pain because they've been conditioned not to show their pain. Always remember this. If you look at a clown, is a clown actually smiling or are they frowning? So it's okay not to be okay.
All right, so since you stole my answer, I will say this. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to, I always say, like, your brain might be a little bit different, and that's okay because God made you the way you are. And like, there's still so many strengths that you might have, even if you're really struggling at, maybe it's a chunk of your life or just different pockets here and there. It's okay. And that there is help out there. It's okay to not be ready for the help right now, but just the fact that you're even thinking about it and considering it, that's a step in the right direction. If you are going through a lot or you know somebody, these are messages that you can pass along to them as well. I always say, because people are nervous that like, does that mean I have depression or does that mean I have this? And I flip it and I'm like, yes, that's what I'm seeing. And that's what the diagnosis is. But here's why that's great. And you can flip it in terms of like, now that we know what it is, we know how we can treat it. And so sometimes identifying it or like having a label, I hate it. It stinks, but it's a good starting point to steps in the right direction. And on the note of finding a therapist, if you get a bad match and you have they answer all your questions, you get that free 15-minute consultation and everything sounds good. And then you get in there and you're like, whoa, I don't want to do this again. Or even if you're a few sessions in and you're like, yeah, no, this isn't for me. Don't give up all completely altogether. Try somebody else. Maybe you need to take a break and think about exactly what didn't you like and what are you looking for now that you've had some type of idea. But don't give up, find somebody else. There are tons of good people out there and you will find a right fit one day.
So both ladies gave great advice. It's okay. But what I would say that kind of veers off a little bit, but it does apply. Recently, I've been looking into historical trauma and PTSS, which is post-traumatic slave syndrome, and just looking at that pyramid. And something that came out that stuck with me, which I think would be valuable to share, is the concept of Sankofa, right? So Sankofa basically states that it's not taboo to go back and to fetch what you forgot, meaning it is okay that we look to our past and we gather those good parts of our time living and use it as a teaching tool to help us achieve our potential moving forward. So I hope that is valuable to somebody.
And one other thing I want to add also, Ayana and I, we were talking about this earlier today. Be careful what you're putting in your spirit. And I'm going to quickly share what I mean by that. For some of us who are on, kind of older, there was a book that was out. It's called The Coldest Winter. Is anybody familiar with that book? Okay. So that book was written about 20 years ago. And it was the story of a young woman in New York, Brooklyn, that was the daughter of a drug dealer's daughter. That it just went through her whole story. The book ended with her going to jail for racketeering and some other stuff. Not really important. So for the last 20 years, we've been waiting for the sequel to come out. Sequel came out, I want to say maybe 6 months ago, I guess. I bought it. I actually bought it on Audible so I could listen to it because I work from home. And what I shared with Ayana was on Monday, I started listening to the book. And I'm not sure who on this call has read the book or listened to the book or whatever. So I was listening to the book Monday, and the name of the book was Life After Death. Okay, so for me, I interpreted life after death being life after she got out of jail. So I started listening to it, and the book was taking me into a dark place because literally it started out where she was killed and she went to, I guess, purgatory. And as I was listening to it, it got crazy. The next day, I listened to it some more, and it was taking me into a deeper and darker place with this book, where I knew right then and there that what I was feeding into my spirit, which was this book, was starting to affect me, was starting to affect my mental health. It was starting to actually affect my spiritual health. I had to get up the next day and not only stop listening to the book, but actually delete the book. So we have to also, for our own mental health, we have to be careful what we are allowing into, into our brains, into our head. We have to be careful with some of the music we're listening to, some of the conversation that we're listening to, some of the books. Who would have ever thought I would say to someone, I don't want you reading that book. But we have to be very mindful because there's a lot of stuff that's out here now for young people. There's a lot of stuff, that we're seeing on Facebook, Instagram, all of these different social platforms that are not good for our mental health, our social health, and our spiritual health. So we have to be very, very careful what we're feeding ourselves. So if I had to leave everyone with that note, that would be the thing. Who would have thought me and my 50-some years old would be looking at saying, oh my God, where is this taking me? But that was my reality. So just be careful.
I want to thank you. Sorry, I want to thank you so much, ladies, for all of the wisdom that you've given us tonight, the ideas, just opening up this topic of mental health. I want to reach out. The office that I work for is called the Center for Growth, and it has a few locations as well as does telemental health. But the reason I'm putting it out there, they also have what we call support groups. I know mental health can be expensive, but these support groups are only $10 per session. So they have support groups for anxiety and depression. They have it for chronic pain. They have mindfulness, and they're only $10 a session. So if you are interested, I'm going to put the website up here. And I'm sorry, so it's called the centerforgrowth.com. And you can just go online and you can actually see the various support groups that they offer. It's up there. There's only $10 a session. Also, a lot of insurance companies now are reimbursing for mental health. So they're trying to make it more available. So contact your insurance companies, find out if they're reimbursing, and as well as some insurance companies actually they are accepting counselors. So there are some counselors that actually accept insurance, what I'm saying. So check that out, because a lot of times you going into therapy does not mean that you'll have to be there for life. It's not a lifelong thing. A lot of times it's just for that moment. You get the skills you need, you learn how to work through it, just like you do rehab on something that's broken or your healing process. You do that with mental health. And some people come in every week and some people do once a month check-ins, depending on what the needs are. But don't be afraid to actually reach out to talk to someone. The last thing I'd like to leave everyone with is, just like Nora was talking about her peeps, that when she says something online, she's gonna flip that table, they know to give her a call. Look to see in your life, who are those people that's your support network? Who are your people that can sit there and monitor, and you guys have each other's back, your ride or dies. Okay, you wanna have that support network in your life. And the last thing, I am big on self-compassion. Self-compassion is just basically you talking to yourself like you would your best friend. So if you're not gonna dog your best friend out, if you're not gonna call them names or whatever, talk to yourself like that, okay? I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight, for your patience with everything, our technical difficulties. Next time, I'm sure will be smoother. This was our first time doing the live stream as well as the Zoom and all that stuff. So we're back in-house. If you guys can join us, come on out, but the Zoom will always be open. A heartfelt thanks to Nori, Ayana, and Tasha. You guys made this program is so, so special, and I really, really thank you. You have been an amazing resource to us this evening. And, you know, we're all praying for you in the, just being in mental health. Yes. So thank you, thank you, thank you. With that, we are going to have our closing prayer. Here's one of our newest members of the FNL team.
I just want to thank everyone for attending tonight, this spring. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for each new person that was able to join us tonight. I ask you to be with everyone that is physically here, protect us all as our journey home, and be with us as we come to worship you tomorrow. Continue to watch over us and keep us, and to be with each and every one of your children across the world. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. About one thing, see now, if you guys were in person, you'd have the snacks that we're about to give out as everybody is walking out of the door. We've got some delicious treats, so I'm just saying. Also, we are throwing out a challenge. If you're gonna be in person, we've got a prize for whoever comes and not just brings themselves, but other people. So the person that brings the most people, we got something for you and you will love it. So anyway, have a good night. Happy Sabbath. Have a wonderful weekend. See you guys.
See ya.
I enjoyed it.
Get a call, baby.